Part 204. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2031. Lu Sunyang has been with Manbao for a long time and is used to her various questions, but she was a little stunned at this time, and then she thought about it and said, she blushed and seemed to be extremely angry. It's better to let out your anger than to keep it in your chest. Otherwise, the anger will accumulate too much, and I am afraid that the other half of the body will also be paralyzed. Manbao nodded slightly, and began to teach them how to observe words and expressions, as well as the method of conditioning the 5 internal organs. When the patients inside had lost their temper, Manbao brought Shi Xiu and Lu Sunyang in, leaving the others outside. The patients' family members looked apologetic. Manbao just nodded to them and continued to diagnose the old woman. After Shi Xiu and Lu Sunyang finished the exam, Manbao decided on the acupuncture method, and then let Shi Xiu go out and give instructions in person. Lu Sunyang has needles. Seeing that Lu Sunyang had the needle, the old woman was a little reluctant. Didn't Imperial Physician Zhou do it herself? Manbao smiled and reassured her, it's all the same, I'll watch from the side, don't worry, she's the same as mine. What's the matter? You are a teacher, she is a student, you are an imperial physician, and she is just a medical assistant. Manbao said, only I will do the acupuncture that she hasn't used before. The acupuncture you are using now is the one she used before. The woman said, but there are still some differences between students and teachers. Manbao frowned, then paused, and took the needle from Lu Sunyang's hand. I'll give you a try. Manbao explained the needle to Lu Sunyang while inserting the needle. After the needle was inserted, Manbao gave her a prescription for her to pick up the medicine at home. Seeing that Manbao turned around and went out to prescribe the prescription for a long time, the old woman couldn't help but patted the bed with her right hand and called for someone. The girl who was waiting outside immediately came in and bowed, old lady, what are your orders? Where's Imperial Physician Zhou? Dr. Zhou is seeing a doctor. After the voice fell, the old woman's son also came in, and he said happily while someone was being carried out, Mother, the medicine has been taken, and the doctor of Zhou said that as long as you take the medicine well, it will be fine. There is a possibility of improvement. Didn't you ask Imperial Physician Zhou to go home for needles in the future? Her son was stunned for a moment, and then said a little embarrassedly, Mother, she is an imperial physician and lives in the palace, so it's hard to invite her. Then have you asked for it? The old woman was a little annoyed by the look on his face. How do you know you can't ask for it if you didn't ask for it? Didn't you see the woman who came to get the needle today? She already came yesterday, and Imperial Physician Zhou is willing to give her another needle. Why can't you invite her? Just give more money. Her son. It's not that he never hired anyone. After his mother was paralyzed, he first hired Dr. Ding from Ji Shitang, knowing that Ji Shitang had a half-doctor in the Imperial Hospital. One is Imperial Physician Zhang, and Zhou Man is also considered to be from Ji Shitang, so even if her surname is not Zhang, she is also half of Ji Shitang. But he had invited, not only Zhou Man, but also Imperial Physician Zhang. Later, he also handed posts and gifts to Zhou Zai. However, the gift was politely returned, and Zhou Man's 5th brother personally said that Imperial Physician Zhou was busy and did not have time to go out to the clinic. Since he couldn't invite him at the time, he felt that it would be difficult to invite him now. Before them, it was not that there were no wealthy people who came to consult him, but he had never heard of anyone who could ask Imperial Physician Zhou for outpatient clinics, and there were only a few symptoms. More special, she made an appointment with someone to see a doctor at Ji Shitang. He remembered something, his eyes suddenly lit up, and he said, yes, Mother, I can go and ask, maybe Imperial Physician Zhou is willing, and then we can also go to Ji Shitang for consultation. After that, he turned around and went out to find Zhou Man. Manbao had already seen a new patient, and was instructing Shi Xiu and Lu Sunyang to consult, When the old woman's son came to ask, Man Bao thought about it and said, actually, she still needs to relax and eat slowly. Herbs and needles are indeed helpful, but I'm busy, so I'm afraid I won't be able to give her the needles on time. Man Bao pointed to Lu Sunyang, who was on the side, and said, you may ask medical assistant Lu, she may be free. Lu Sunyang. He also knew that it was difficult to find an imperial physician, and Zhou Man could only leave the palace for 2 days per 10 day, so it was difficult to get him an opportunity for an outpatient clinic, so as soon as she refused, he stopped asking, and looked at Lu Sunyang, who was on the sidelines, nodded and smiled. Stand up. Lu Sunyang. In the tent just now, his mother disliked her very much. She couldn't help looking at the master, wondering if she was sincere or fake. Man Bao met her gaze and said lightly, the old lady's illness is not common. If you have time, why don't you go and have a look? Lu Sunyang understood, so she turned her head and said to the man, I only have 2 days to spare every 10 days. The two briefly exchanged the time of the visit, and the man went back and told his mother. The old lady was unhappy when she heard it. Why did you ask Dr. Lu to help? She is just the apprentice of Imperial Dr. Zhou. Her son said, although he is an apprentice, he is also a medical assistant. Mother, the medical assistant in the Imperial Hospital will be the next Imperial physician. Then isn't she not yet? But Imperial physician Zhou can't be hired. The old lady said, carry me and I'll invite it myself. Her son. He was helpless, so he could only ask someone to carry the old lady out, but Man Bao didn't have time to talk to her at all, so she said with a smile, old lady, it's not that I don't want to, but I'm really busy, so I want to disappoint you. Already. The old lady didn't expect her to refuse so bluntly, so she couldn't help but said, then you are going to consult that woman in person at noon today. I heard that she will be coming in these days. Man Bao smiled and said, she is quite ill, but you saw it today. Her acupuncture is also done by my disciple, so I just watched. But her acupuncture method is always prescribed by Imperial physician Zhou. Man Bao just smiled, lowered his head and went to prescribe a prescription, glanced at Lu Sunyang and Shixiu, nodded when he saw that they had written the pulse, and said, next one. After speaking, he said to the old lady, I also set the old lady's needle method. Although the old lady was a bit domineering and arrogant, she was not stupid. She heard Zhou Man's shirk, and knew that it was useless to ask for it, so she could only be carried away in an unhappy mood. In fact, after 3.5 days of such patience, Man Bao also met a lot, but it did not affect his mood much. Because the next illness always comes forward in time, and one of the main purposes of their free clinic is to train students. This time, the students have gained a lot. It was she who also visited the special diseases treated by Imperial physician Xiao and the others, and learned a lot. At the end of the free clinic, Imperial physician Lu officially approved Shixiu, the 9 students, and Zhenggu to join the Imperial College Hospital as medical assistants. In this way, there are more medical assistants in the Imperial Hospital, and there are at least 3 medical assistants under the hands of 1 Imperial doctor. See you at 10 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2032. Although the imperial physicians of the Imperial Hospital are very busy, a large part of the reason is because of the establishment of the Imperial Physician Office. If it is really just seeing a doctor and studying medical books, it is actually not that busy. After all, there are only so many patients. They used to go out of the clinic a lot. But since the establishment of the Imperial Physician's Office, they seldom receive outpatient clinics. Because they are too busy, not only do they have to teach, do lesson plans, but also compile medical books, but they are so busy, and there are still so many patients on their hands, so when they are very busy, medical assistants are actually not very busy. Not only are they not busy, but there is not much they can learn in the palace, except of course, if there is a master like Zhou Man behind them, they will teach them all. However, you have to practice if you are taught. So soon after the 9 medical assistants entered the palace, the Taiyuan hospital decided to open a medical assistant bureau under it, specially for the palace people. Its main personnel are the medical assistants of the Tai hospital. In addition, Dr. Xiao personally took the lead. Man Bao, Dr. Liu, and others worked together to connect the pharmacies in Beijing, leaving a consultation room for the Tai hospital in the lobby, and the medical assistant in Fantai Hospital took the stamped license issued by the Taiyuan Hospital can be used for consultation in the associated pharmacy. Of course, this is not mandatory. Anyone who wants to go can apply for it, and if they don't want to go, they won't go. However, in order to improve medical skills, patients must see more, and only by accumulating enough experience can they become a good doctor. However, it all depends on personal self-consciousness. Zheng Gu, Zheng Xiao, and Lu Sunyang didn't all rely on self-consciousness, not to mention Ji Shitang, even their master would always find all kinds of patients for them. After the free clinic was over, Man Bao slowly handed over the next long-term patients during the free clinic to the 3 of them. The long-term patients that she could take over would not have simple diseases, but all kinds of diseases that outside doctors could not treat or could not treat. Among them, vaginal diseases and infertility are the most common. She seems to be recognized as the best at these 2 diseases, so many patients who come to her are of these 2 types. Man Bao and others agreed to see a doctor in Ji Shitang, but each time he had to bring an apprentice, and then personally instructed him from the consultation, prescription to needle insertion, so that after 2 or 3 times, the patient could be handed over to the apprentice with him. Of the 3, Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao took over 2, Lu Sunyang took over 3, and Mrs. Luo, because her illness was indeed more complicated, changeable, and serious, so Man Bao stared at him personally. But every time she sees a doctor, she still takes Lu Sunyang and Zhou Liru with her. Not only Lu Sunyang, Zhou Liru is also making rapid progress. After the 2nd month of the 2nd month, the dragon looked up, and busy people began to appear in the fields inside and outside the capital. Zhou Dalan and Xiao Qian also packed up and went to Pu village. The farming is busy. Although they only planted 3 experimental plots, the rest of the plots were planted by tenant farmers, but they still had to keep an eye on them. After all, if they plant well, they will have a high harvest, and if the harvest is high, they can get more. Man Bao's rare rest followed the 2 of them step by step. Sister-in-law, don't we really need to go with us? Don't you still have patience? Mrs. Jian said, you are an adult now, so you can't think about having fun all day. Man Bao, not just for fun, I'm afraid you might get the seeds wrong. You can't be wrong, said Zhou Dalan, who held the cloth bag in his hand and said, don't you write it all on it, this bag is 1 minus 1, this bag is 1 minus 1 minus 2. Although he didn't understand what it meant, he still knew that a bag of rice seeds could only grow 1 field. As early as when Manbao came back with the rice seeds, he had been talking about it, and he could say nothing. Moved all back down. Manbao could only reluctantly watch them get into the car. Jolie put the car on, and said with a smile to Manbao, young aunt, don't worry, and I'm watching, it won't be confused. It was only then that Manbao saw Zhou Lizhong. By the way, Imperial Physician Lu and I discussed that after you leave the country, the 2 of you will start taking the 6 rites to get married. The main reason is that Zhou Lizhong and Lu Sunyang are not young anymore. Zhou Lizhong might as well as she suddenly talked about her marriage, her face was a little red, but she still looked at her parents expectantly. Zhou Dalan and Xiao Qian's naturally had no objection. After discussing it, the 2 said, let's go back and count the days, and we should be able to leave in March. The ceremony followed the household registration. The head of the Zhou family was Zhou Jin, and Zhou Jin was an ordinary person, so the old Zhou family, except Zhou Man, only observed 3 months of national filial piety. But if she were a man, the old Zhou family would have to follow him for another 6 months. When she knew this at the time, she didn't know whether to say that the court preferences to sons and daughters. The entire Lu family must follow imperial physician Lu for 6 months of national filial piety. Man Bao figured it out by herself. She started to go to the 6th ceremony in March, which was estimated to be the wedding date in July and August. She had already decided to turn around and write to her parents, asking them to come to Beijing to attend the wedding. Zhou Dalan and Xiao Qian's family thought the same thing. For such a big event as the eldest grandson to start a family, it would be better if his parents were there. After seeing the family of 3 away, Man Bao turned to go back to the study, saw Zhou Lixiu open the door lazily and came out. He stopped and asked, "Lixiu, what did you do last night? Your mother said that the light in your room is on." "Half night." Zhou Lixiu sighed faintly. "My uncle signed up for this year's Jinqi examination, and they all said that he is the youngest person in this year's Jinqi examination, and there is a high possibility that he will pass. After hearing about it, our husband thinks that we live together. And I'm still your nephew, so it shouldn't be much worse. If there is, it must not be a problem of brains, but a problem of diligence. So now, in order to force me to be diligent, I have been assigned a lot of homework, some of which I haven't learned yet. Since I haven't studied it, I can only find it out and read it now." Zhou Lixiu stayed up very late last night, and finally couldn't hold it anymore, so he crawled onto the bed and fell asleep as soon as he touched the pillow. "But little girl, I don't think it's a matter of diligence. I'm also reading when you're busy reading." "Really?" Zhou Lixiu felt that he was not lazy at all. He said, "I think it's my parents' business." Question. "I heard that my uncle was very smart since he was a child, and your grandfather was a scholar, so he must be very smart, so it's inherited. You can't blame me." Man Bao actually felt that what he said made sense. "Although I think what you said is right, it may be difficult for you gentlemen to believe you." Man Bao looked at the cyan in his eyes and said, "Although diligence is important, it is necessary to combine work and rest, otherwise it will be too much of a loss." "Already? I think you're right, Auntie, that sharpening knives is not the same as chopping wood, so I just slept in late today." "Man Bao, are you sure it's not that you can't get up, but that you deliberately slept late?" See you tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2033. When Man Bao brought Zhou Liru to Ji Shitang, Lu Sunyang, Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao were already waiting inside. There are also the Luo family and the couple waiting together. Today, after Man Bao has seen it, if there is no problem, he will hand Mrs. Luo to Lu Sunyang to take care of it. The other brothers of the Luo family went back a month ago, but Luo Dalan and Mrs. Luo stayed behind. He still rented a house to live in, and Friday Lang gave him a job as a helper in the grocery store next door. Occasionally, the grocery store would go out to carry bags when there was no working hours. Save some money and buy some medicines, just enough for their food and lodging, while Man Bao doesn't charge their medical fees. Occasionally, Ji Shitang will give them a discount to see Man Bao's face, so the husband and wife come down for a month. I haven't spent all the copper coins I brought before. Although he lived in trepidation every day, he was very happy to see his wife getting better day by day, and felt that his persistence was correct. Man Bao finished taking the pulse of Mrs. Luo. Her lochia has stopped now, but her body is still very weak. From today, she will change 2 sets of acupuncture methods and prescriptions. Man Bao not only taught Lu Sunyang and Zhou Liru, but also taught Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao, who were standing aside. She said, even if the patient resists the male doctor's acupuncture in the future, he can use the medicine, so you should study this disease seriously. Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao responded obediently. After Manbao had prescribed the prescription, he took the prescription they prescribed and pointed it out, and only then did Dr. Lu go to give Mrs. Luo an injection. Because of the new needle method used today, Manbao has been standing by and staring at it in person. When the needle is pulled out, Manbao felt Mrs. Luo's pulse and nodded with satisfaction. Okay, take the medicine and go back. Mrs. Luo can now dress herself, and even walk a few steps down the ground by herself. She nodded again and again, got up and put on her clothes. Luo Dalan took the prescription to grab the new medicine, and then thanked Zhou Man again and again, and then left with Mrs. Luo on his back. Lu Sunyang came over with clean hands and asked, "Master, will she recover in 2 months?" Manbao said, "Follow the doctor's advice, it may take less than 2 months. It's a pity that her family is poor, otherwise she can eat some eggs and meat every other day, and she will recover faster." Now Luo Dalan is very generous when it comes to food for Mrs. Luo, but he only eats 2 eggs in 2 days and meat once in 3 days. Just when Manbao was busy with these patients, Prince Gong was finally leaving the capital. He was going to take his wife and children back to Luozhu, and he had already set a departure date. Originally, it was better to leave after the Lantern Festival, but Princess Gong just caught a cold that night, so it was delayed until now. Chang Yu came to invite her to see off Prince Gong, and Manbao was very surprised. "Do I want to see off Prince Gong?" Chang Yu said, "Send it, and it will also be sent to the gate of the palace. Isn't the third brother's leg injury treated by you all the time? I don't know when I will see you again when I go to Luozhu." If it was before, Chang Yu would never have said this. Luozhu is not very far from the capital, but it is far away. As long as he is favored, the emperor will always call him to the capital during the festivals. But this time is different from the past. This time King Gong left, the father and the emperor would not take the initiative to call him back, so it was only possible for him to be recalled to the capital due to the important event of the emperor. From Chang Jiu's point of view, she naturally hopes that the father and mother will live long and peacefully. That's why she said, "I don't know how long it will take to see her." In this era, separation can really be a goodbye. Manbao thought for a while, although her relationship with Prince Gong was not a good one, but after a long time, it would be better to send him to the doctor and patient, so he asked Chang Yu about the time and promised to send him off at the gate of the palace the next day. Manbao is going to go, and as Mingda's future concubine, Bai Erlang, naturally he will also send it. Bai Shan thought for a while when he saw it, and simply walked with them while he was not in class. When they arrived, King Gong was saying goodbye to the emperor. In fact, he still wanted to go back to Luozhu. Now that he has lost the qualification to compete for the throne, his legs are crippled again, and staying in the capital is like going to jail, so although he can't bear his father, Prince Gong still wiped his tears and said goodbye. King Gong said goodbye to the emperor, but to the queen he was more cautious. The queen sighed slightly at him, reached out and touched his hair. Not only King Gong, but everyone else was slightly taken aback. The queen touched him just like when she was a child, and sighed, "Remember to write to us when you return to Luozhu." He added, "The Queen Mother only hopes that you will be safe and healthy for the rest of your life." King Gong nodded in response. The three of Manbao finally stepped forward, just handed over the prepared Cheng Yi, and then wished King Gong a smooth journey. King Gong was surprised when he saw them. He obviously didn't expect them to come to see him off. He hesitated to take the things in their hands, turned around and handed them to his servants before nodding slightly. Everyone just said a word. It was getting late. After they left the palace, they had to leave the city. It was getting late, and King Gong reluctantly got on his horse and left. The prince personally sent the people out of the city. Watching the convoy walk away, and looking at Prince Gong who was just one step behind the prince, Bai Erlang couldn't help but ask in a low voice, Your Majesty asked the prince to send Prince Gong, won't they fight on the road? No, Bai Shan said, it is a customary rule for the prince to send the vassal king to leave. It wasn't until the carriage disappeared that the emperor supported the queen's hand and turned to go back to the Taiji hall. He glanced at the three Zhou men and nodded with satisfaction. The three of them are still nostalgic. Although I don't usually have much contact with Prince Gong, but he also came to send people off. The queen glanced at the emperor, who was covering his ears and stealing bells. He didn't think that Zhou Man and the others were thinking too much about their old feelings, but that they knew how to be polite. The three of Man Bao lowered their heads and waited for the empress to walk away, and then they ran forward and dragged Mingda and the two of them to talk. Bai Erlang nervously looked at Mingda, whose eyes were a little red. You don't want Prince Gong to leave? Mingda shook his head. It's good for the third brother to go back to Los Angeles, but I feel that I might not see each other for many years, so I'm just a little sad. What's the matter? He can't go back to Beijing. If you want to see him, go to Luozhou to see him. Man Bao also nodded. That's right, you can still play in Luozhou along the way. Mingda couldn't help laughing, wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes and said, do you want to drop by to play in Luozhou, or drop by to see the third brother? Anyway, it's almost the same meaning, just do both things. Chang Yu said, I don't know what delicious food is available in Luozhou. The third brother has forgotten to ask him after coming back so long. This kind of thing has always been a concern for servants. Chang Yu would not have thought about this kind of thing before, but now he has taken the initiative to ask and consider it. The five walked back. Mingda and Chang Yu made excuses and planned to detour to the East Palace to see the crown princess and the little grandsons. The empress didn't stop them either. The girls were all grown up, so naturally they would play by themselves. See you later at 8 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2034. Mingda, Chang Yu, and Man Bao sat on the observation floor together, while Bai Shan and the others went to class. The palace people did not dare to neglect the two princesses, so they sat down and someone brought fruit and snacks. Seeing that Man Bao and Chang Yu took a piece of fruit, Mingda couldn't help but ask with a smile, Man Bao, don't you go to the Imperial Hospital and the Imperial Physician's office? Man Bao shook his head and said, there are no classes at the Imperial Medical Office today. I am not on duty at the Imperial Hospital, so I won't go if no one calls me. There are only a few masters in the harem. Generally, the imperial doctor on duty can handle it when she is ill. If she is not sure, someone will naturally call her. She said, I want to stay at Chongquen Hall to repair books. She is not only the imperial physician of the Imperial Hospital, but also the editor of the Chongquen Museum. Chang Yu asked while eating the fruit, then you are still sitting here? I'm looking for inspiration here, not to mention, Man Bao looked at the two of them, you really don't want me to accompany you? It's best to have you with us, Chang Yu asked with a smile, how long will you stay with us? After thinking about it, Man Bao said, for a while. She said it was a while, but she had been sitting in the observation tower to spend time with them. Mingda looked down at the direction of Chongquen Hall, and seemed to hear their reading aloud, and sighed, I don't know how sure Bai Er is. Can pass. Chang Yu said, Wei you will definitely pass the test anyway. Man Bao was surprised, so confident. Chang Yu said confidently, Wei Yu's homework is not bad, and he is not only famous, and he is not only my concubine, but also the son of Lord Wei. I don't believe that anyone will drop him. She turned her head to Mingda and said, Father, the emperor loves you, and Bai Cheng doesn't look like a swindle. He should also be on the list. Man Bao already knew that being famous was very important to the candidates, and that the external situation had an impact on the candidates, but he didn't know that the impact was so great. Seeing that Chang Yu spoke confidently, and Mingda did not refute it, Man Bao knew that things might really develop like this. After thinking about it, she said, it seems that Bai Shan still has to make a name for himself. Mingda smiled and said, I think he doesn't need it anymore, it's too much to go too far, he now has a reputation for being loyal and filial, and he has a good reputation. His reputation is a real good reputation. Will be lower. In fact, Wei Yu's article is not bad from his previous talent name, but he is now not only the son of Wei Xiang, but also Chang Yu's concubine. These two identities actually cover up his talent name. Therefore, for Wei Yu, this reputation is more harmful than beneficial, but it is the opposite for Bai Erlang, but Mingda thought it through, but did not say this, so as not to worry about change Io. But although she didn't finish her words, Man Bao still heard it, and she nodded thoughtfully. This year, many people decided to take the Jinshi examination, and Ji Hao, who had no idea at all, also participated in the Imperial College. As soon as he participated, Wei Chen and others, who had just come from the school to enroll, immediately made a fuss and wanted to participate together. Anyway, they are Qiaozijian students, and they are qualified to take the Jinshi examination directly, unlike others who have to go through the government examination before they can get the qualification. Bai Shan and the others gathered with them after the rest, and simply gave them a copy of the homework assigned by the gentlemen of Chongguan Museum. Although the exam questions have not yet been determined, the questioners are likely to be Confucius Jiju and his gentlemen. Although they also teach in Qiaozijian, Kong Jiju is still Qiaozijian Jiju, but it is difficult for them to go to Kong Jiju class. It's completely different from Bai Shan and the others who have to take a class on Confucian wine sacrifice every other day. Not to mention Wei Chen, even Ji Hao thought that they were likely to get the first month, so he did not reject the assignments they sent, but took them back and studied them seriously. After March passed, Zhou Dalan took time out of his busy schedule to come back with Xiao Qian's family, and went to Liu's house with Man Bao to visit. After returning, he immediately began to walk the 6 ceremonies. Because they think that Lu Sunyang will be very promising in the future, someone who is more promising than their son. After all, she will be an imperial doctor in the future, and Datu is only a farmer now. Occasionally, she seems to make more money when she goes out for business with the 4th child. But don't say whether the little money earned is more than that of a future daughter-in-law, if there is, it is only earned by leaving home, and it is far less decent than Lu Sunyang's being an imperial doctor. So in order not to make their son feel too guilty, Zhou Dalan and Xiao Qian's family calculated all the money in their room, and only after this calculation found that they had saved a lot in the past 2 years. Zhou Dalan said, if you have a bowl of water, you have to save a little for the 3. Although the family will make money in the future, he still studies. It costs money for repairing and buying books and pen and paper. Last time, I heard him and Lego talk about what book to copy to make money, and only 25 coins can be earned per book. So Zhou Dalan picked out 2 pieces of silver from a pile of money. I will weigh it and see how much it is. 12 taels, otherwise, let's keep these 2. If you only pay for the repairs, you can pay for 4 years. If you include the pen, ink, paper, and some books, it will be enough for 2 years. How can we save it after 2 years? Some. Xiao Qian said, the 3 heads are already 15 years old, so it's time to say kiss after 2 years, right? In fact, if it was someone else's family, or before the family, they should start dating at the age of 15. After seeing each other in a year or 2, they can get married, which is just right. But since Saturday Lang, the children in the family are getting married later and later, but no matter how late, the age of 17 should start. Since we want to talk about marriage, we have to reserve some money for marriage and marriage. Even if they can make money, it will be difficult for them to earn the money for a son to marry a daughter-in-law in 2 years. So Zhou Dalan scratched his head, then, the dowry on the big head side should be less. Let's make it a little less. The little Qian, she was actually a little guilty, but they only had so much money, and now there are 2 sons who are not married, so it is better to have a bowl of water. So, Joe Dallin began to share some pieces of silver and copper coins to the other side, because he thought that the two would still earn 2 years later, so the points were still a little less. Xiao Qian thought so too, so he agreed with his method of division, and began to count the pile of money. It was mostly copper coins. Those pieces of silver were still the money from the public center that was divided by his parents before. At this time, Joe Dallin remembered how good Thursday was, and said, "Shiro doesn't know when he will come to the capital. He won't share the money he made last year." Xiao Qian said, "It's also the parents who want to divide it up. Shiro is useless. The second and third are still in their hometown." Joe Dallin thought it was true, so he talked with his parents. "I don't know when my parents will come to the capital." At this time, the old Zhutu also looked at the tea leaves that Thursday Lang took back and said, "You bought tea with all the money you made last year." Thursday Lang said, "Father, the tea on the grassland sells very well, and there are tea bricks. Basically, as much as you take, you can be robbed. See you at 10:30. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2035. Old Jotio said, "I didn't see you bring back the money you earned." Thursday Lang, "Didn't we all buy furs, pearls, and medicinal herbs? And cows? Look at the accounts in the account book. We made a lot of money last year. This year we pulled so much tea, we'll only make more money." Lao Zhutu asked, "Then you will bring back more furs, pearls, medicinal herbs, and cows?" Although Chu Yulang planned to do so, when he was asked by his father, he got stuck and said, "Father, isn't this bad?" The old Zhutu said, "What a shit, we don't need the money we earn, what's the point of buying and selling it all the time?" He said, "The big head is not too young. He will definitely get married this year, and the marriage will require a betrothal gift. The family of Imperial Physician Lu looks much richer than ours. Our family's betrothal gift should not be too shabby. Thursday Lang, aren't you afraid that when you send this dowry gift, they will deduct it all and only give you a granddaughter-in-law?" The old Zhutu said, "No, I have already asked. Those rich and noble people, if they are kind, will send the dowry back as a dowry, and some dowry will be added. How could he possibly make a loss-making business?" Thursday Lang, "That's also someone's dowry, and it has nothing to do with the big head." "Why doesn't it matter?" Lao Zhutu stretched out his hand and patted him and said, "Don't be foolish here, we are all a family. Will her dowry not be given to her husband or children in the future? And she will still be an imperial doctor in the future," Lao Zhutu said with emotion. "Look at how much money Manbeo can earn a year and come back with rice grains. The big head can marry her, it is like a lantern, so this dowry gift we can't be too stingy. We have to save face for the big head." When Thursday Lang heard this, he also pondered, "But Dad, you said it too late, I already ordered tea bricks with someone before I came back yesterday, and I used up most of the cash on hand. How much money do you have now?" Old Zhutu turned around and walked away. "Where do I have the money? I have the money from the public, and I have to share it later." "Impossible," Shu Yulang chased after him and said, "You and your mother always have a share when you divide the money. You and your mother are frugal, so how could it be that you don't have any money?" Old Jotio said, "That's a dowry for Manbeo Bei." He said, "Don't look at what's going on in Bai Shan's family. The dowry must be high, and we can't do anything without preparing for dowry." On Thursday, Lang said, "Use some now, and then take money from the big brother and the others to make up." The old Jotio gave him a sideways look and said, "You have a bad idea, there are still 3 heads under the big head, and you have to do what you can to marry a daughter-in-law. How can you borrow money for a betrothal gift?" But once he returned to the house, he couldn't help discussing it with the Jian family. The boss definitely doesn't have much money in his hands, and things in the capital are so expensive, it must cost a lot to buy a good dowry, otherwise we'll take care of ourselves first. Give the boss some. Qian directly refused. She said, I will give the big head. Will I give it when the second head gets married? There are 3 heads and 4 heads, and a series of children. She said, a bowl of water can't be leveled, the children will have opinions. This time I went to Beijing to bring the second child and the second daughter-in-law, and the second head and the second girl should also get engaged. That house. Qian pondered for a moment and said, we will come back in the autumn, when the marriage between Ertou and Ya can be decided for the best, and if it cannot be decided, it will have to be left for next year. The third one will go to Beijing. Daughter-in-law still has to see it for herself. In the future, daughter-in-law will take care of them. Then the boss won't help. Lao Zhutu frowned and said, the Lu family is a good family, so it's a joke if the dowry is not well prepared. Qian said, the big head has money in his hands. He will find a way to get his own betrothal gift, and he will serve as big a bowl as he can. It is said that each family will be responsible for the marriage of the grandchildren. This is also an important reason why the Qian family let them save their own money and divide the public money once a year. The grandchildren have to marry and study. Every child is different, whether they want to study, whether they can study, and even what kind of people they marry, and what kind of people they marry are also different, so she simply asked them to turn in them. After a part of the money, the rest is kept by myself, and the money in the public is divided once a year in addition to daily expenses. Therefore, marriage has long been the responsibility of each house. Qian she said, the children and grandchildren have their own children and grandchildren, and the big head is already the grandson. If you take care of him, you have to take care of the remaining children. Otherwise, when it is their turn to talk about marriage, they will also say that the dowry is not enough. Do you give it or not? Old Zhutu, our family makes so much money every year, how could it not be enough when it's their turn? Qian said indifferently, how many things in this world are enough? The old man fell silent. Mrs. Qian said, their parents will take care of their affairs. We only need to take care of our children's affairs. She said, the 7 children of Dalan and Liaolang have all married and started a family, and now there is only one Manbao left. We just need to give her to her marriage. Since it is said that the money is a dowry for Manbao Zhao, it will be given to Manbao. Full of treasures. The old man stopped talking about it. Zhou Dalan and Xiao Qian didn't even want to ask their parents for money. They had the same idea as their parents, how much food they could eat in a big bowl. Although they really wanted to make the betrothal gift a little better, it had to be under their circumstances. If they didn't, it would be impossible for them to borrow money to marry their daughter-in-law. However, they have less money, and most of them have money. He turned around and ran to Zhou Lejun. After the two checked the ledger, Zhou Lizhong took a burden from Zhou Lejun. He carried the burden back to his parents. Zhou Dalan was stunned when he opened it and saw the money inside. Where did you get so much money? Although it is not as much as the money saved by the couple, it is still a lot. Mainly he is 1 and they are 2. Zhou Lizhong said, I saved it in the past, with the 4th uncle and the 5th uncle, they have wages every month, and the money I saved is put with the 2nd sister and the 4th uncle, and I take the 4th uncle to the grassland with me. On. Even if he didn't go, he also handed over the money to the 4th uncle to buy shares, so he made a lot of money. And Zhou Dalan and his wife were able to save more money than him while farming, also because all the money in the public house was in the hands of Zhou Dalan. Zhou Lizhong handed the money to his parents and said, Father, Mother, take my money to do the dowry. Xiao Qian couldn't help but say to Zhou Dalan, he is much more promising than you used to be. When Zhou Dalan married her, the betrothal gifts were all from the family, and there were not many things. In front of his son, Zhou Dalan was a little embarrassed. See you tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2037. Zhou Lishong really saved a lot of money. Man Bao heard that the wedding date had been set. On June 28, he turned around and immediately wrote to his parents, asking them to come and see their eldest grandson get married. Then, he picked on the shelves in the space, picked out the fabric that he thought was suitable for Lu Sunyang, took it out and gave it to Xiao Jian. When Mrs. Jian saw the cloth in her arms, she saw that there were at least 5 or 6, and the cloth underneath almost touched the ground. She immediately went up to catch it and asked, "Are you going to make clothes?" "No," Man Bao said, "this is a dowry gift for Li Zhong." Little Qian was slightly surprised. She took the things back into the house and counted them carefully. She found that there were 6 horses in total, and each of them was of good material and color. Man Bao rarely buys fabrics outside. For many years, I hadn't seen Man Bao buy fabrics and clothes outside. All of them took the fabrics from home and went out to make them, or Mrs. Lu made them and delivered them. Is this a reward from the palace? Man Bao nodded. These 2 were rewarded by the queen, this one was rewarded by the queen mother, this one was given to me by Mingda, and these 2 were given by the crown princess. I think the colors are good and they are very suitable for the 3. Mother, so you can give Li Zhong a betrothal gift. Xiao Jian said with a smile, your eldest brother and I will go out to buy it, and the big head has saved a lot of money. I have calculated with your eldest brother, and it is enough to buy a good dowry gift. You can take these things back. Man Bao shook his head and said, sister-in-law, you can take it? Anyway, I got a lot of rewards. Half of the fabric I got was handed over to the 4th brother to exchange for tea and medicinal materials. The reason why a few horses are not taken out is because it is good. Good cloth, as long as it is well preserved, it will not change color for 10 to 20 years, so the cloth can be used as money. I will add these cloths as a dowry gift. It will not only look better on the face, but also save some money. Money to do other things. Man Bao also had plans in private, and Bai Shan also reminded her that the development of a family should be at least 20 years later, and the development of a family should be at least 50 years later. So Man Bao quietly said to Xiao Jian, save some money, Li Zhong can turn around after they get married, and we can also buy them some fields. After being stunned for a moment, the little Qian Shi immediately said, the big head has divided the land in the village. Is there enough Yanjiashan points in the village this year? It's still enough. What about the subfield? Xiao Jian said with a smile, it's still a mountain, and there's a lot of land at the bottom of the mountain. Speaking of which, he was lucky this time. He was assigned a very small mountain when he was divided. That piece of wasteland also belongs to him, because the wasteland occupies a lot, the village even opened the wasteland for him, and your 2nd brother and 3rd brother will plant him all privet seeds this year. The land in the family is all combined, and the harvest and other things belong to the public, but in the future, unless the old Zhou family is so poor that they need to sell the land to support their parents, when the family is divided, a full share will definitely go back to everyone. Whose, that's whose. Xiao Jian said this to tell Man Bao that their family has no shortage of land and big heads. Man Bao said, the land is not too much, and it is in the village, and it is still too far from the capital. If Sunyang stays in the capital in the future, what will Lishong do in the capital? He can't have no land at all. Xiao Jian said with a smile, he has the ability now, and he can support himself and his family with only the land at home. Man Bao knew that she was talking about Zhou Lishong's business with Zhou Lishong. No matter how bad it was, he could still be an accountant now, which was better than farming in the village. Man Bao took her sister-in-law's sign language and said earnestly, Sister-in-law, for the long-term plan, Liz Hong should buy some land here. For business, you can go twice a year like the fourth brother now, you can't do it? Excessive. The dynasty was generous to the merchants and did not manage it strictly, but if the treasury is very short of money in the future, the dynasty is in urgent need of money, I am afraid that more business taxes will be levied, and there will be strict requirements in other aspects, so the land still cannot be used. No, at least we are farmers, not businessmen. This is a long-term plan. In the short term, it's not bad for the husband and wife to have a plot of land near the capital. Not to mention growing some food, just growing some fruits and vegetables can save a lot of money for a year. Now many of the melons and fruits in Zhuji restaurant are sent from Pu village. Those winter melons, pumpkins, and cabbage that can be stored, Joe Dallin set up a piece of land to plant last year, and the commonly used beans, and directly use the rents handed over by the tenant farmers. Not only is the restaurant in use, but most of the food at home is sent by Zhuangzi, and there is also the Bai family who often sends some seasonal fruits and vegetables. They are not extravagant, so the family's expenses are not large. Xiao Qian has lived in the capital for more than a year, but she often communicates with people nearby for shopping, mainly because the several dishes she cooks are very popular. Just the ingredients are often bought. Although she was only the manager of the purchases, she had come and gone a lot, and she occasionally heard from them about the expenses of their master's family, which was quite a lot. After saying this, Xiao Qian can understand. Although she didn't understand what Man Bao said about the long-term plan, she also knew that it was good for her family. So she was quickly persuaded and thought about it. It's just that the land in the capital is very expensive. Before, my father wanted to buy some land near the capital with the money, and he asked your elder brother and the others to go out and inquire about it. They just asked, the price is high, so let's not talk about it. We thought about it for 2 days, and sold it when we asked again. It's completely different from buying a piece of land where they have to watch it repeatedly for 10 or 20 days. Man Bao couldn't help but let out a loud voice and said, Sister-in-law, it's hard to buy in the capital. We can go to Yangzhou to have a look. There is a lot of land there, and the price of land is not very expensive. That's the only way. Then we will allocate some money to buy a few acres of land in Yangzhou, but it is difficult to buy land, Xiao Qian said suspiciously, but I see a lot of land in the capital and Yangzhou, it's much bigger than ours, a large piece of flat land passes by, unlike ours, there are mountains, how could so much land not be sold? Man Baidao, the imperial court has stipulated that the Yanjai Tian given by the imperial court can only be sold when the elderly cannot support the elderly and have no family resources to bury the elderly. The mouth-divided farmland must be taken back after the death of the person. So ordinary people sell less land, and even less for those with wealth, unless they want to move away like their family. If they don't stay in the capital in the future, there are only a few acres of land nearby, so it's better to sell it directly. Otherwise, if you keep it, you will not be able to grow it yourself, and it will be troublesome to rent it out to collect rent. Also, there are changes in the family, Man Bao said. Although there are many people in the capital and Yangzhou, there are not many such families, so it is difficult to find land. But this also has advantages. It is difficult for them to buy land, and it is difficult for others to buy it, so ordinary people rarely lose land. From the perspective of the court, this is actually a good thing. See you at 8 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2038. Xiao Qian learned the words to her husband and son. Zhou Dallin was still looking at the cloth on the table, and Zhou Lishong had already said, I know, my second sister and my second brother have privately said that although the business makes more money, but also difficult. If you run a business outside, if you can make some achievements, it's not because you are extremely smart and your family is rich, that is, you have a backer behind you, or you can't go far at all, he said. To be honest, in our family, except for my sister-in-law. No one is particularly smart, but the third brother. He is better at reading than our brothers and sisters, but he often needs to turn on the lights to read books at night to be comparable to others. Therefore, unless the aunt comes to be the head of the house, our family can't do it purely by her ability. How big? Then we can only find a backer. Speaking of these secrets, Zhou Lizhong lowered his voice slightly and said, fourth uncle has always wanted to do business with Princess Changjiao, but it's not because of his ambition, but to make the business bigger. In fact, he wants to don't get bullied when you want to go out. When Zhou Dalin heard this, he immediately asked, you were bullied outside? Zhou Li said, it's impossible not to feel wronged at all. When I went out with my fourth uncle for the first time, I was invited by the caravan to their stockade on the grassland. At that time, although my fourth uncle and I were invited I went, but I didn't even have a seat. The one who spoke at the front was a caravan steward who was walking with us. Even if they were robbed, Thursday Lang and the others didn't even have the face to go in front of the robbers, which shows how insignificant they are. Later, they could come out, or because the bald department who brought them into the grassland found that they couldn't reason with the caravan, so they simply took 2 bags of tea that were given privately by Shai Zilang and invited people from the nearby tribes to come forward, and they met on the grassland again. Xiang Mingxiu, who has some ways, can be considered safe, but he has lost some money. At first, he and the fourth uncle were very wronged, thinking that they must talk to the aunt when they go back, but when they entered the grassland and went with Xiang Mingxiu in a team, they realized that the grievance they are suffering now is not at all. What kind of? Compared to Xiang Mingxiu, they went smoothly. In the past, when Xiang Mingxiu did business in the grasslands, he pinned his head to his waistband. It's just that he was bent on revenge at that time. Buddha blocked and killed Buddha, God blocked and killed God, and he was smart, but he killed a bloody path. And back and forth twice, Zhou Lizhong and his fourth uncle vaguely knew something, and while admiring Xiang Mingxiu more, they also wanted to find a backer to lean on. He said, now our family is going in and out of the grassland, and when we encounter some stockades and caravans, we just need to give some things to go there. That's because we have friendship with the tribes on the grassland, and we have a good relationship with Brother Xiang. But in fact, these 2 relationships are not reliable. The bald tribe has milk and is a mother. We are good now because we want to buy medicinal materials and cattle from them, and we will sell them silk and tea leaves. If there were any merchants who offered higher prices, or cheaper merchants for tea and silk, they would kick us out. Brother Xiang is also unstable. He has no capital now, and because of the special friendship between our 2 families, he is willing to cooperate with us, but in fact, our family is taking advantage of this cooperation. Xiang Mingxiu has no capital, but it is not difficult for him to want capital, even if the source of the capital may not be innocent, but he can have it. But connections and roots are not something you can get with money. Entering the grasslands was much smoother last year, because Xiang Mingxiu followed, and even the profits went up a little bit more. Zhou Li said, it's okay to take advantage of things like this once or twice, but if there are too many times, there will be quarrels, and the fourth uncle also said that relying on feelings is not more reliable than interests. Everyone is one, and the other is two. Talk about it, it's better than thinking about old relationships. So we all want to do business with Princess Changjiao. If she participates in our family's business, we will make money for her, and in the future, when you go out, you can do things in her name. Zhou Lizhong said, many have no foundation. People who want to expand their business are like this, there is no way, not to mention officials and powerful people, that is, we pass the goods randomly through a place, the squires in that place are stronger, and they really want to buy and sell with us. You have to swallow that breath with blood. Isn't that what the Luo family in Gu County, Liangzhou was like back then? Both Zhou Dalin and Xiao Qian have heard of the incident that when Shishulang and his 4 younger siblings walked through Guxian County, they were forcibly bought, and their children and daughter-in-law almost had an accident. At that time, my aunt was already very famous. Even so, the magistrate of Gu County did not give the fourth uncle the decision. He just wanted to, but he was afraid that he couldn't. In some places, the squires were bigger than the county magistrates, and they were not afraid of the county government at all. Zhou Lishong said, not only the local squires, but also the people in the caravans who go to the business together, they will compare each other, and they have a ranking in private, like our family, although the business is not big, the foundation is it's shallow, but it belongs to the upper middle class. In fact, it wasn't that good at the beginning, but in the past 2 years, the aunt's reputation has become more and more popular, and she has become more and more favored in the palace. Especially this time Zhou Lijun went out with them. They carefully inquired about the details of some caravans and learned some little secrets. These caravans, excluding the caravans of the top companies, are those of various families and powerful people who can't offend the most, such as the Kui family, the Lu family, the Wang family, the little uncle's Bai family is also among them, but it is only a matter of affiliation. With the light of the Bai clan, no one will trouble them unless necessary. The Guanlong nobles like Zhao Qiuagong and Su Qiuagong usually avoid them for business. Then there are some people in the family. In a family that is an official in the court, our family is barely included because there is a younger sister. But it's still because my aunt is getting more and more famous now, and my uncle's name has spread. Everyone knows that my aunt will marry the Bai clan in Longzhou in the future, and my uncle is very good at reading, and now he is still the prince's companion, and it will definitely be in the future. The future is worry-free, Zhou Lishong said. In our family, the third and fourth brothers are all studying. Although they haven't read anything, but at first glance, they want to let the family's children and nephews go to the examiner. Outsiders are watching. Don't dare to bully our family, after all, no one knows what will happen to our family in the future. So our family has to have land, and if there are people who study, then we can change from a farmer to a farmer, which is much better than a businessman. Sometimes going out and walking depends on a situation and a reputation. Or do people like to talk big in business? Because talking big can not only make people afraid, but also easy to achieve. Zhou Lishong said a lot, and Zhou Dalin and Xiao Qian finally understood, and the two immediately said, then buy land. See you at 10 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2039. Zhou Dalin began to search around the capital and Yangzhou again. He found a lot of teeth, but as Man Bao said, there were very few people who sold land. Obviously, there are not so many prodigals in this world. Even if there is a land to come out, he usually only goes to see it here. At first, he just felt regretful, but the more times he felt it was not right, so he couldn't help asking about the transaction price of Yazi's land, because he and Yazi were familiar with each other. Although he didn't get the specific price, he also I vaguely know that the transaction price of those lands is not that high. It's weird that it sold so fast. He couldn't help but ask Man Bao, the most knowledgeable man in the family. Man Bao. She didn't know Man Bao, so she humbly asked Bai Shan for advice. Bai Shandao, someone is eyeing the scattered areas in the capital and Yangzhou. I am afraid it is a game that has been made together with Yaxing. He said, for example, if a person wants to sell land, he can either let out the wind and sell it himself, or find a tooth bank. The former tooth bank has heard about it, and can make people pretend to be people who buy land to come to the door to inquire and make an offer, and lower the price first. It's a big one, and I sent a few more people. The person doesn't know the details. If you add urgent money, you can't help being deceived, and then sell it to the people behind it at a lower price. Man Bao was surprised. The Yamen is in charge of the Yamen. Yamen is an intermediary. Whether it is a buyer or a buyer or seller of fixed assets, they must obtain qualifications from the Yamen, and the teeth inside also need to obtain the certification of the Yamen before they can engage in this industry. Moreover, all the work in the tooth bank needs to deal with the Yamen. Buying people needs to be transferred, and buying and selling houses and fields also needs to be transferred. In the eyes of ordinary people, yaxing is equivalent to half a Yamen. As soon as Man Bao's words came out, even Bai Shan frowned. There are not many people who can link up with so many tooth shops in Yangzhou, the capital. He didn't think that the other party took money out of it, he could only use his power to overwhelm others, and then he was tempted with small profits. This person even digs the money to buy the land, how could he generously use the money to smash the teeth? Bai Erlang said, this kind of thing can be found out by asking Feng Zonping. Bai Shan looked at Man Bao. Man Bao shook his hand and said, no, my family doesn't necessarily have to buy land this year. I just asked because I didn't understand it, but this is really strange. When we went out to play in the afternoon, we just stopped by the county office. Bar. Bai Shan nodded, it's been a long time since I visited Brother Tang. Man Bao said with a small face, and Yang Swexian, he wrote last time that the harvest of new wheat seeds in Xiaohu is not as good as that in Mianzhou, and Xiaohu has a strong folk style, nearly half of the people I don't know how to farm, and I don't know if he can persuade him to teach Nongsan this year. Bai Shan said, Swexian Tang will definitely write a letter to Swexian Yang, or else I will write a letter along the way and take it to Swexian Tang to take it. Not to mention Man Bao, even Bai Erlang nodded again and again, okay, okay. So the three of them started to write letters, and then put together the letters they wrote, and stuffed the stacks directly into the envelopes. Magistrate Tang was stunned when he received such a thick letter. He looked at the name on it, why did you give me the letter to Changbo? Bai Shan said, Swexian Tang, don't you write a letter to Swexian Yang. Tang He, who has no intention of writing a letter to Yang He recently. Facing the three pairs of bright eyes, Tang He could only accept the message, okay, I will send it back to you. The three of them were very satisfied with this, so by the way, they mentioned the sale and purchase of land by the tooth bank. Tang He frowned slightly, nodded and said, I know about this, you guys go play first. It's impossible to play. Bai Shan and Bai Erlang are going to take the Jinshi exam in October, so they went out for a spin, and after some relaxation, they went home and continued to review their textbooks. Zhou Lixiu, who had been planning to go out to play, turned around and saw the little uncle and the others coming back, and they went into the study to read as soon as they came back. Not only Zhou Lixiu and Zhou Legu, but also Bai Shuping felt heavy on their shoulders and felt heavy in their hearts. Once it sinks, I don't really want to go out to play. So several people looked at each other, silently put down their arms on each other's shoulders, turned around and went back to read. Forget it, people are so much smarter than you and work so hard, how can they be so embarrassed to go out and play? Seeing that they went back and took the book to read in the garden, Xiao Jian was very satisfied, and said to Zhou Dalan, before starting school, I was naughty and couldn't sit still. I didn't expect that now he is the best student in the family. Zhou Dalan said, Lego is more powerful than Lixiu, and there is a little sister. Lijun and Liru are actually not bad at reading. They are reading books all the time. Little Qian, she just wanted to praise her youngest son. Zhou Dalan failed to understand his wife's meaning, and took out two pieces of paper with messy symbols and missing arms and legs and said, Manbeo asked me to change a tooth shop yesterday, and I found another one, and this is what they gave me today. As for the few plots of land, because it is spring now, there are not many people selling land, which one do you think we should look at first? Xiao Jian immediately put aside these thoughts and looked down at Zhou Dalan. Zhou Dalan said, I also entrusted the post station to send a letter written by Manbao. At most, my father and mother will receive the letter in 20 days. If there is a little sister, they should come to the capital, and then Li Wei and Li Jun will come to the capital. It's not too small, and they will definitely want to say kiss, so I think about buying a bigger one, and then I can ask the second child if he wants it, and if so, we can buy it together. Second son, they are going to the capital. Zhou Dalin said, if the parents come to Beijing, I guess they will bring the second child with them. Li Wei, Li Jun, and Li Ru are all three children in the capital. They say that kissing is a big deal, and it is impossible for parents to decide by themselves. You must have asked the parents of the three children, otherwise, if the parents of the three children decide a marriage, there will be resentment and quarrels in the future. After thinking about it for a while, little Qian understood, and said, then we have to clean up the room for the second child and the others. She said distressed, we don't have a suitable room in the yard where we live. Then just pick a room in the backyard. This big mansion has many yards and many rooms, not to mention the second husband and wife, even the third husband and wife come to the capital, it can be stuffed. Xiao Qian said, I'll ask Man Bao in a while. Man Bao, of course, has no objection. It's fine for my sister-in-law to be the master of family affairs. If you need something, you can go to the warehouse to find it. If you don't have it, you can ask Li Jun for money to buy it. If you don't have it, you don't need it. Xiao Qian thinks that as long as you have the necessary things in life, it is enough. For other things, it is natural to have it. See you tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2040. Xiao Qian's family was ready. In early May, Thursday, Lang really came to the capital with a family of young and old. Zhou Lijun and his younger brothers and sisters went out of the capital to pick them up, and Feng saw the sister and brother. The three did not dare to recognize it. Not to mention Zhou Lijun and Zhou Liru, even Zhou Liwei is very different from before. The three of them were very happy to see their parents. Zhou Liwei ran towards his father, Zhou Lijun and Zhou Liru also ran towards their father. The three of them looked at Zhou Yulang with bright eyes and shouted, Dad! Hey! Zhou Liwei looked at the three children, stretched out his hand and patted Zhou Liwei's shoulder fiercely. He was so happy that he couldn't see his teeth. Good boy, he has grown so tall. He couldn't help but praise Li Jun and Liru, they're both big girls. Feng Shi, who was also very excited by the sight, saw that the three children were all heading towards Zhou Lang. He was unhappy and couldn't help coughing. Zhou Lijun immediately smiled and called his younger brother and sister mother. Feng Shi was happy in his heart, and his face was hard, and he couldn't help but bring some out. Okay, your grandparents are behind, go see you soon. The three went to meet at the back. Zhou Dalin had already arrived and was talking to the old Zhou head Qianshi. When he saw Zhou Lijun coming over, he said, Father, let's go back first, the child's mother is cooking at home. Old Zhou nodded. Feng Shi's rare son was holding his hand and said, I want to die. Although I'm tall, I look thinner. I'll wait for my mother to cook something delicious for you. Zhou Liwei froze, and hurriedly declined, Mother, I'm not thin, so don't tire you. Everyone returned to Zhou's house in a lively manner. It was the first time for Lang and Mrs. Feng to come here on Tuesday. Before they came, they had heard Dad talk about the size of the house in the capital more than once, but they didn't feel anything. When they stood in front of the door, they couldn't help but open their mouths. After entering the door again, everyone saw it lively, and then when the three children moved their belongings to the backyard to settle down, they looked away, swallowed and asked, What's the matter? The yard is ours. Zhou Liwei said, Not only this side, there is a row in the middle, and there is a row of courtyards over there, but the courtyard over there is relatively large, with few rooms, and the scenery is not bad, and finally there is a large garden, "Dad, you rest first, I'll take you to see it after dinner." Tuesday Lang was speechless. Such a big house. Still in the capital, how much is this worth? On Tuesday, Lang just thought in his heart that Feng Shi asked directly. Zhou Lejun said, "I don't know how much it can be worth, because the houses here are basically not bought and sold, and those who can live in this house are either rich or expensive." Feng Shi was speechless, and then she remembered and asked, "What about your aunt? I haven't seen her yet." "The little aunt is in the palace," Zhou Liru said. "The little aunt is on duty today, she can't ask for leave, and she has to wait for Xiu Mu before she can leave the palace." Feng Shi finally remembered and asked Zhou Liru, "How are you studying medicine with your aunt now?" Zhou Liru said nervously, "It's good, my aunt said I didn't study badly, let me learn it slowly." Feng Shi was very excited. "Are you going to give people a pulse now?" She said, "I heard that the big-headed daughter-in-law is also your sister-in-law's disciple. She has only been a medical assistant after 2 or 3 years of study. According to your grandfather, she will be the same as your sister-in-law. 100 acres of land." Zhou Lejun's 3 siblings. Zhou Liru couldn't hold back, "Mother, senior sister, she only studied with my aunt for 2 or 3 years, but before that, she had been a doctor girl in the Taiyuan hospital for many years." Zhou Lejun said, "Mother, that land is a job field, not for the little girl. If the little girl is not an official in the future, or changes her place, the land will be returned." He added, "My aunt can divide so much, not only because she is an imperial physician, but also because she is an editor." Feng didn't even understand the official name, but he sounded very powerful. Zhou Liwei said directly, "Mother, don't urge the third sister, let her learn slowly. My aunt said that it is not too late to study medicine after 10 years of study. Then your sister-in-law didn't study for so many years. My aunt is so smart, can we compare with her?" Zhou Liwei said, "As a matter of course, it's all about memorizing a text. My aunt can memorize it after reading it twice, but we may not be able to memorize it after reading it 20 times, so 1 day of her kung fu is equivalent to 10 days of our kung fu, and 1 year is equivalent to 10 years of ours. You can count how many years she has studied." "Feng, is that the calculation?" She always felt that something was wrong, but she couldn't tell what was wrong. On Tuesday, Lang had already unpacked and brought out all the contents inside. Seeing that Feng was still thinking about it, he said, "Don't think about it, can you understand what it takes even a long time for my mother to understand? Let them themselves do it." "Feng Shi, what are you saying, she is stupid?" Zhou Liwei and Zhou Lejun were already smiling on Tuesday and asked, "Come on, tell Dad, have you had any sweethearts in the capital for the past 2 years?" Zhou Liwei lowered his head and blushed before Zhou Lejun was about to say no. She was stunned when she saw it, and then lowered her head, then took a deep breath, and it took a long time for her face to turn red, and then she quietly exhaled. On Tuesday, Lang didn't notice it, but when he saw his son and daughter blushed, he was happy. It seemed that even if he didn't have a sweetheart, he would be enlightened. It's easier to talk about it when you are enlightened. The words of your parents' life matchmaker, when the time comes, you can just look at a few suitable ones, and there will always be someone who can catch your eye. It's hard to be like the old sixth, guarding money and thinking it's better than marrying a daughter-in-law. He came to Beijing this time for the children's marriage, so he doesn't care about anything else, as long as they decide on a suitable marriage." On Tuesday, Lang smiled and decided to have a private chat with a pair of children in the evening, lest they be embarrassed in person. He happily pulled Feng away, and Zhou Lejun breathed a sigh of relief. When he looked up, he saw Zhou Liwei and Zhou Liru looking at her in surprise. Zhou Lejun raised his eyebrows and asked, "Why?" Zhou Liwei swallowed his saliva and asked, "Second sister, do you have a sweetheart?" Zhou Liru also stared at her closely. Zhou Lejun said, Not yet, isn't that afraid that dad will mess up the Mandarin ducks, or let me go back to my hometown. She paused and asked Zhou Liwei, do you have a sweetheart? Zhou Liwei twitched and said, yeah, no. Let's say. If you have it, you have it, and if you don't have it, you don't have it. Zhou Lejun couldn't help but reach out and pat him. You still want to lie to the little girl? No, we didn't talk much. I like it a lot, but I don't know if people like it or not, Zhou Liwei explained anxiously, remembering something, and immediately said, and you haven't gotten engaged yet, what should I do? Can I get ahead of you? I'm really sorry today, I originally wanted to write an update after I changed hotels at noon. I should be able to update it before 2 o'clock, but I was delayed on the way, and then I went into the new hotel for a wash time, so that the update is only now. I'm really sorry to keep everyone refreshed today, I'll ask for leave in time in the future. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2041. Don't use me as an excuse, Zhou Lejun said, if I don't get married in my life, would you dare not to marry a wife in my life? Zhou Liwei, of course he didn't dare, but he felt that the second sister dared, so he didn't dare to say a word. Zhou Lejun snorted and told him, you can't use me as an excuse in front of your parents, you know? Also, cover up for me. Zhou Liwei, what are you covering up? Tell your sweetheart to your parents and let them worry about you, Zhou Lejun said. People's mental strength is limited, and when your parents worry about your affairs, they naturally don't have time to take care of mine. Already? She said, I estimate that they will stay at most until July and August and will go back this time. Otherwise, the family will have to collect medicinal materials in winter and plant some new medicinal seedlings. The 3 uncles and 3 aunts will definitely be too busy. So just drag it out until then. Zhou Liru couldn't hold back and said, second sister, you are so treacherous. Zhou Lejun said, what do you know, it's called calamity. Zhou Liwei went crazy, I'm still here. Fool, it's a disaster for me, but not necessarily for you. That's what it's called on my side, and Ziki Donglei on your side. Do you understand? Together we call it a win-win situation. Really or not, why do I sound so weird? Second sister, what book are you reading recently? Although I read few books, I have never heard of the word Ziki Donglei. Every good thing can be called this word. Is it a good thing that you have a sweetheart? Think about it, is it a good thing that you are going to marry her? By the way, you haven't said who your sweetheart is, I know. Zhou Liwei couldn't help but quickened his pace. Zhou Lejun chased after him, are you stupid, why are you hiding from me, tell me, I can still give you advice, you are embarrassed to tell your parents, I can still give you run errands to spread the word, who will tell you when you run? Of course it was Zhou Lizhong. The 2 cousins have grown up together since childhood, and they have a very good relationship, especially since they have been together all these years. So they don't know anything about each other. Except for Zhou Lejun, the other party also knows the amount of money saved by each other, which shows how much they know each other. Mrs. Feng and Mr. Zhou also felt that it would be best to ask Zhou Lizhong about this kind of thing, so after the 3 families got together for a meal to wash away the dust in the evening, Mrs. Feng rolled up his sleeves and went to the kitchen to help wash the dishes. Zhou Lizhong pulled him aside and whispered. Zhou Lejun choked his wrist when he saw it, and felt that it was a mistake. She simply turned around to find Zhou Liwei, and pulled him aside to work, I'm your sister, can you help me? Zhou Liwei, second sister, do you really plan not to marry for the rest of your life? Zhou Lejun asked, are you comfortable getting married now? What do I want to marry? Zhou Liwei opened his mouth, and after a while he choked out a sentence, does he like you? Zhou Lejun gave him a sideways look and said, what a fool, he likes me, what's the point of me not liking him? If you don't want to live a better life when you marry, then you should want me to like him. Of course, if we can get along with each other. Like the best. But I don't have anyone I like now. Looking around, I can say that there are people who can make my life better than now. There is no one, so why do you think I got married? Zhou Liwei actually thought that what she said was very reasonable, but he felt that something was wrong. After a while, he said, "Second sister, mother seems to have said that it is better to find someone who likes you than to find someone you like." "That's my mother, not me." Zhou Lejun raised his chin and said, "I want to get married. If I have to choose one, I must find someone I like." Zhou Liwei was puzzled. "Why?" Zhou Lejun glanced over and said, "Although emotional matters cannot be in this proportion, I think there is something in common. If you want to buy a cat, is it a cat that likes you, or a cat that you like?" "Woolen cloth." Zhou Liwei. Seeing that he couldn't say anything on his face, Zhou Lejun said, "If you don't believe me, wait for my aunt to come back and ask her. It is right to ask my sister-in-law about undecided matters at home." Zhou Lejun said, "But before that, you have to help me. Say, who is the person you like?" Zhou Liwei was embarrassed for a while, then twisted and said, "It's that Mr. Jing on the same street as our restaurant." Zhou Lejun raised his eyebrows. On their street, there was a private school gentleman. He set up 2 rooms in his yard to teach. He taught only enlightened children. He taught until the age of 12. Some people left after recognizing the words. People go to other better schools. This Mr. Jing is not particularly old. He has a son and a daughter. The son is only about 13 years old, but the daughter is 15. I heard that he still wants to participate in the imperial examination. The little girl Zhou Lejun also knew. She also bought whitening cream from her. She said, "You have a good eye." Just looking at the parents, their old Zhou family is far inferior to the Jing family. But Zhou Lejun didn't let him stop his mind immediately, but said, "If the little girl doesn't mean that, you can find some more mind. If there is, then you should work hard. You don't expect to study, you still make more money. Maybe the Jing family will agree to this marriage because you make more money." Zhou Liwei said a little depressedly, "I also know that some are not worthy, so I didn't say anything." Zhou Lejun asked curiously, "Will the eldest brother say that?" "No," Zhou Liwei said firmly, "I told him, don't tell anyone, not even to the uncle, aunt, and aunt." The most important thing for Zhou Li is that he didn't even tell his parents and sister-in-law, and he wouldn't tell Zhou Lang. When Zhou Lejun was satisfied, he reached out and patted his shoulder and said, "Nice job." Zhou Liwei immediately said, "Second sister, don't be fooled, I have nothing to do with her, and she just said something when she came to our restaurant to buy food." "I know, am I the kind of person who doesn't have a good record?" "Don't worry." Zhou Lejun was about to leave after he was happy. When he turned around, he saw a figure under the flower tree next to him. He was startled and couldn't help asking loudly, "Who's there?" The figure behind the tree paused for a moment, then the 2 siblings stared at Xiang Mingxiu and walked out with an embarrassed expression. He was really embarrassed. He stood under the tree and saluted the 2 of them. "I just picked flowers inside, so I didn't mean to eavesdrop." Only then did the 2 realize that he was still holding a flower in his hand, which should have been taken back and put in a bottle. Zhou Lejun found out that this was the way to the guest room he was staying in. They should have suddenly come here to talk and stopped Xiang Mingxiu, who was picking flowers from behind the tree. I forgot to preview the previous chapter. The next chapter is around 10 o'clock in the evening.